We're just trying to make awareness of a lot of women being missing today, you know.
I understand.
I know you've been seeing it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
You got a wife, you got kids, and you got people out here just snatching them up.
Well, you guys are doing a wonderful job, man. I appreciate all y'all's help.
Shalom Israel, Most High in Christ, bless Captain Paulo with Israel United in Christ. What we out here doing today, we out here in the neighborhoods trying to find our people, all right? What you see above us is the missing people flyer. In our neighborhoods, in Oklahoma by itself, it's 121 reported cases of people that are being taken for sex trafficking. So there's no news about it on the internet. There's no way to find out. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take matters in our own hands to make sure that we're going into the neighborhoods and searching for our people, all right? So that's what we're doing. We out here campaigning for the missing people campaign to make sure that we put in our brick in our community so we can bring our people home, all right? Most of the people that's being taken is blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans in our communities. So we must do something about it. And I challenge you to do something about it as well, all right? Shalom, Most High in Christ bless.
Israel United in Christ. We are not a hate group. We are not affiliated with any other Israelite group. Israel United in Christ is a nonviolent, Bible-based movement. We do not advocate or condone any acts of violence against any race, ethnicity, or gender. We advise that if anyone hears or knows of any plots to cause harm to anyone or to break the laws of the land, you must contact the proper authorities to bring awareness to any possible threat, as stated in Leviticus chapter 5, verse 1.
Shalom, shalom, Israel, Most High in Christ bless. Welcome to another edition, Thursday, 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern, precept upon precept. We are your host. I'm Captain Shem to my left.
Officer Matthew.
To the far left.
Officer Mikael.
And to the right.
Officer Micah.
So tonight we want to welcome you back. And the show, we're going to go part 2 of Escape from Captivity. Put the meme up real quick before we go to the Watchman Report. There is a meme that Officer Mikael put together. Want to acknowledge that. It's up. All praises. So y'all take a look at that because we're doing part 2. Last week, Lord forgive me, I forgot the brother's name. Powerful. Robert Smalls. Very, very powerful. Those of you who watched last week, the brother did an incredible, stole a doggone warship, got past 4 checkpoints, and then later on we're gonna touch him in a little bit. But look, so they showed the meme.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're gonna jump right into it. We're gonna start the show like we usually do. We have 3 segments. We have the Watchman Report. Midway through the show, we have Cornerstone News with Officer Mikael, and then the end we wrap it up with Officer Matthew with Kingdom Music. So with that, we're gonna take it away to Officer Micah with the Watchman Report.
Shalom, Israel, Most High in Christ bless. Good to be back. So we're going to jump right into it. First article, Meg Thee Stallion thanks Maxine Waters for supporting WAP. This made my entire year. In case y'all don't know, Maxine Waters, one of the oldest sitting representatives in Congress. So she supports WAP. Next article, please. The Air Force secret new fighter jet will give enemies hell if Congress will pay for it. So, yeah, Congress going to pay for it because they want to keep that Army running nice and proficient. Next article, please. Oh, where's the title? U.S. civilian contractor died during rocket attack on air base in Iraq, Pentagon says. This comes in light of the incident that took place in Syria. So now they're bombing Iraq again. Next article, please. NASA, Perseverance will search for ancient life on Mars. These places are next. So they'll explore Mars now. They trying to leave us, y'all. Next article. French Catholic clergy may have abused at least 10,000 people since 1950, says investigators. So they still sexually abusing people in the old Catholic church. Children, little boys. Next article, please. Black celebrities show support for LGBTQ community in Ghana after raid on center. So the Most High raided the center. Instead of our people saying, oh, all praises, they want to keep it going and support it. More to follow on that. Next article, please. Sheriff Department executes search warrant on Tiger Woods' car trying to determine if a crime was committed. So the brother got injured in the wreck, but I guess they're trying to say, hey, look, let's find out if we can put you in jail for something. Next article, please. 30 years ago, I watched Rodney King beaten. We thought our fight was finally over. No, Karen Bass, the fight continues. They still gunning us down. Next article, please. And lastly, U.S. naval warship sails through Taiwan Strait for first time under Biden's rule. Taiwan and China. There's going to be a lot more to follow on that action. And that concludes the Watchman Report.
Hey, Shalom Israel. So look, Shalom Israel. We're going to jump right into, before we're going to touch on Robert Smalls later on in life as he journeyed through the political scene. There's something I want to share. Akim, I sent the article to you just about 2 minutes ago through Telegram. When we think of black settlers, we think of only a couple of places, like Tulsa, Oklahoma. We think about Rosewood, and we think about there's another one that it's famous for. But what I want to show us today briefly to start the show is that there were many, many black settling towns that were not talked about. And most of them were not documented. It's an article from the Washington Post, I believe. Okay. You should be able to find it. Real quick, matter of fact, I don't want any dead time. Get me the book of Deuteronomy 28, because what we're going to find is after we got the freedom on paper that said you are no longer legally bound to be a slave, forced labor for no money. It translated the next step, well, not translated, but it progressed to, or regressed to, sharecropping, Jim Crow, black codes during the time of Reconstruction and post-Reconstruction. So why didn't we, in 1920, why didn't we evolve? Why didn't, with these black towns like Tulsa, Oklahoma, why didn't we reach a pinnacle and then keep growing up and pass our white counterparts? Because it was never meant to. No matter what we put our unity towards, it was always going to fail. Give me Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse, not 47. It says, read verse 16, excuse me.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 16.
Y'all stand by while we get that article. Read.
Cursed shalt thou be in the city.
Because wherever we go, many of us that left the southern cities of Birmingham, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi, parts of Florida and Texas, we went north because there were industrial jobs. When we got to Chicago, Cleveland, Rochester, New York, we continued to suffer through these curses. Read on.
And cursed shalt thou be in the field.
Right. And the ones that stayed back in these plantations, which were now sharecropping plantations, if you will, we would continue to be cursed in the fields. Read on.
Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store.
And this is the part I want to get to. No matter what we have done in this captivity, as Israelites, when we were not walking in the commandments of God, nothing we do is ever going to be blessed. It's going to be cursed with our baskets, meaning our businesses, and our stores. So today I want to read an article. Can we get that? If not, we're going to jump into the other part of the show. Read on.
Verse 18. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body.
Because the fruit of that body, as your brothers know, it's talking about your children. So why is it that in 2021, let's say 5 generations out of slavery, sometimes maybe 6, 4, depending how old the parents were, how come 4 to 5 generations out of slavery, maybe 6 generations, that we're still at the very bottom, still struggling, dying at disproportional rates, divorce rates disproportionately higher, death rates, cancer rates, AIDS rates, premature pregnancy deaths, abortions? Why are we statistically at the bottom and the top, depending how you look at it negatively? Why does this still happen? Because no matter what we do, no matter how much money we get, our people are cursed. And we can never forget that. So as we listen to the show today, there's a reason why the Most High would allow us to get just so much and then bring us down. Just so much and then bring us down. It's a reminder. Read on.
And the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kind,
Right.
and the flocks of thy sheep.
Right. And when we went into agriculture, okay, farming and things of that nature, we would always be second class. We would never prosper. And it's to this day. To this day. Give me Baruch chapter 3, verse 8. All right, if we're not going to be able to get it, this is what we're going to do. Okay, we're going to drop that. It came up on my phone, no problem. Maybe it's the PC, perhaps the PC. Right. Understood. So look, we want to touch on Robert Smalls. There was an article, I think, Officer Micah, you had put something up. Whoever, that article you put up, there was a segment about Robert Smalls on the precept on precept. I want you to get to that real quick. Bear with us, y'all. We had to make a quick little adjustment here. I want the part about later on in life. It says, go to where it says many rivers to the cross. Also, Micah did post it. It is, yes, Small's public career began during the war. It is from historyhouse.gov. History.house.gov. If you look, it was posted at 8:01 on Precept upon Precept. So we're going to review Robert Smalls. In case y'all missed it last week, this brother, when he was 23 years old, after a year being on a ship, he tracked the pattern. He was able to steal a warship, basically rescue some of his immediate family, and then with his crew of brothers, it was slaves, they were able to get by 4 Union checkpoints. Is that the Union? The Confederate checkpoints, and make it to Union. And then when he got there, he turned the ship over, and he was able to get his freedom. And long story short, he became a life in the political arena, making moves in society. She changed the law in Philadelphia with the trolley cars, whatever the hell they call them. Let's read that.
Small's public career began during the war. He joined free black delegates to the 1864 Republican.
Real quick, let's jump. Small's public career began. No, you're there right now, right?
Yes, sir.
Scroll down just a little bit more. At the war's conclusion. So what we're going to do is going to read a little history about Robert Smalls, politically, what he did after his courageous acts of rescuing his brothers, his crew, making it all the way to the Union, turning the warship over. He got a lot of notoriety, and he was given a lot of, for a black man at the time, he had a lot of clout, if you will. So we're going to read about after the war's conclusion. What is the war? The Civil War. When did it conclude? 1865. So here we are. Read.
At the war's conclusion, Smalls received a commission as Brigadier General of the South Carolina Militia.
He was a Brigadier General, which Officer Matt pointed out, it's a 1-star general. Read on.
He then purchased his former owner's house in Beaufort, but he was generous to the economically devastated McKees.
This is a sweet, sweet revenge. Remember, he was a slave, and when he worked the McKees, they were, I guess, found placement for him to get a job. So now he's a brigadier general. He's got money. The white man in the South is devastated because what they did during the Civil War, they did scorch and burn. They went down there. They burned, the North burned all the plantations, and they left these people, their own brothers, Esau, all the Esau, they left them out, burned them up, right? This was Reconstruction, was rebuilding America, rebuilding the South. Read.
Having received a rudimentary education from private tutors in Philadelphia during the war, Smalls continued his studies after settling in Beaufort.
So when he settled in Beaufort as a brigadier general, he continued to read and learn and get his understanding. And what he did is he said, you know what? I'm going to buy my master's house, right? He bought his slave master's house. Then the devils that was giving him a hard time, he said, I feel bad for you. Here goes $1,000. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps. That was very, very powerful for a black man to do that. That's, matter of fact, unheard of to do something like that at the time. It's kind of like the scene in Django when he goes back and he's dressed up. There's a sense of redemption when Jamie Foxx did that in that movie.
So, Cap, you mean to tell me he didn't, fight through the struggles of slavery, fight through the struggles of racism, fight through the struggles of oppression, and then try to save the slave master?
Oh, hell no.
He didn't try.
He mocked the crap out of them. Hell no. Hell no. We're gonna and Officer Matt is framing that because you might think that he feels compassion for the white man, for his slave master. We're gonna prove that he had his foot on the white man's neck, trying to push change in the streets and behind the scenes politically. We're going to just read about it, and then we're going to get into the next powerful sister this time. Read.
He embarked on business ventures, opening a store and a school for black children in 1867.
That's absolutely amazing. That 2 years after slavery, this brother, who was a brigadier general, who stole a warship, got away and rescued his whole family and his crew, he opened up a school for black children in 1867. Mikhail, you said something last week that was heavy. You said, hey, he did this 100 years before Stokely Carmichael and the brothers from the Black Panthers.
Yes, this was 100 years before the Black Power movement, Black Revolution that we think of nowadays. This was in the 1800s. You know, like it says, 2 years after slavery so-called ended, he was able to, like it says, open a school for black children, his own business. As we read on, he published a newspaper. This is a revolutionary thinker.
Right.
And Cap, to get back to your point where we were talking about how he bought the school, he bought the property from the McKees, it goes to show you that he's all about his people. He opened a school.
Right.
So he wasn't for Esau. He was revolutionary about his own people.
Look, and here's the thing. To start a school, let's think of the resources you need. You need a piece of property, real estate. You need books. You need food. You need desks. You need these things. And for a black man who was 2 years out of slavery, the money that he had, he could have rubbed shoulders with the white man and been good. He took his resources and invested it back in his people. This is why we are spending another part of the show on this man, because he had his mind on his people.
Heavy point that you just brought out, Cap. 2 years after slavery, he set these things up, which goes to show you why they struggled so hard and fought so much in order to keep us illiterate. Because they knew we would share the wealth of knowledge. Whether our people wanted to hear it or not, we gonna share the wealth of knowledge. Just like when we go out on the street and teach, we share the wealth of knowledge, whether they hear, whether they forbear. But we share it. And that's the same thing that the so-called white man knew that we was going to do right out of slavery. You look at a brother like Robert Smalls, this guy, he set up schools. Like Cap said, you need a building, you need land, you need the ability to teach.
Officer.
That don't come easy.
You know what's heavy? It don't say he went to no Harvard, Yale. Like, he didn't, no 4-year degree, no, none of that. The brother had the motivation and the drive to say, hey, my people need this, and I'm going to provide that means that they need.
So, Officer Matthew, you said a heavy point. You said he had to have the ability to teach. So that means if he opened the school for black children, that there were other educated black people.
There you go.
He wasn't by himself.
Yep.
It was Zephaniah 2 and 1
That's right.
being applied.
Right. And you know what? It's heavy because if you think about in the public school systems or in any school system, you have administration, right? You have a principal and the vice principal. You have the governing student body. You have the committees. You have teaching staff. All of that. Now, maybe he only had a 2-room school. I don't know, but there's still a lot of organization within that. And something that's heavy, when you scroll up, it said he received an education as a private tutor, right? So how do you, number one, let's think about it. He was a slave in the Confederate Army. Remember, he turned the ship over, so he moved up before the war was over, meaning 1865. He stole the ship in 1862. So in 3 years, number one, the white man loved him because he gave a worship to him. But they promoted him throughout all the ranks to become an officer. To become an officer, as you know, Officer Mike, Officer Matthew, you have enlisted, and you have enlisted, which is basically a private up to, say, for example, a sergeant major. But in the officers, you start from a lieutenant, and you go all the way up to different levels of general. It's like officers, which are the white collar. Can I say that?
Yes, sir.
And the enlisted are what they call the blue collar, the working guys. This guy was so brave and smart, they made him an officer. So it would have been pretty impressive if he became a sergeant major or a sergeant first class. He became a 1-star general. And so to become that, he read books on war. He read books on strategy. When you go to OCS, I was going to become a Marine Corps officer before, and they have a list of things you need to read. Like there's one called The Art of War. There's different things you need to read to get your mindset on being a leader. This guy had private tutors. Oh, he didn't go to Harvard and maybe Yale. He was given a great education to the point he had so much understanding how to open up our own school. We could really, really slip by that if we allow ourselves to, but we didn't. We all caught that. All right, read on. He published.
He also published a newspaper.
I'm sorry. He embarked on business. Do that for you.
He embarked on business ventures.
So the school, he had a school, but he also had business ventures. And these business ventures, we can assume that they were trying to employ other black people. His people. Read on.
Opening a store and a school for black children.
So the store and the school was for black people because you could buy your books, your supplies, and then the school was probably right in the same building or in the local vicinity. All right? Read on.
In 1867. He also published a newspaper.
In order to publish, shout out to IUIC Miami and Captain Zakar, all praises. To even publish a newsletter or a newspaper, you have to have editors, you have to have writers, you have to have people that examine the whole structure and gamut of how it moves. You have to have economists that know how to market it to be able to sell it at the vendor stations, right? They sell them, the little thing you pull out, put the quarter or the nickel and whatever. He had to be able to, you can't just sell a newspaper, hey, out of the trunk of your car. He sold them throughout the area. This is, let's just say 1872. Let me be right. 7 years after slavery, the man had a black school, black business ventures, and a newspaper. I mean, let's really think, like Mikael said, this would have been pretty impressive for 1965. This is 1867, and black people, all the generation, they were all slaves, okay? So we were all slaves. So this is really, really words on the page. We're making them really make y'all see how powerful a lot of the spirits on brothers were right after slavery.
Which goes to show you, we weren't as ignorant as they portray us
There
to
you
be
go.
back in the day. If you got a newspaper published, that means you had writers, you had editors, you had people that understood English to the point to where they can correct it and proofread it, and then put it out to the people. Current events, you know what I'm saying? Newspaper didn't just have regular stuff in it. It wasn't just no comic strips.
No.
They had things in there that was uplifting the country. Uplifting the community, the black community. Because notice he said he opened all of those things for black people. He didn't get all of that and say, well, what about the white man? They was already in power. They already had newspapers. They already had schools. They already had their stuff set up.
Hey, Mikael, real quick, hold that thought. You remember in Superman, right? You had Clark Kent and you had Lois Lane. Their job were what? They were reporters,
Reporters.
right?
Mhm.
So if you are going to report and have a newspaper, news is, hey, this is new to society. Your reporters got to go out there and investigate and come back and need to find it to the writers. There's so much infrastructure and logistical coordination that go behind a store, business ventures, a school, and a newspaper. And this is within 7 years after slavery. This only could be the greatest people that could come out of this and set something up. And by the way, just to be clear, I wish I had that other article, Akim, because and I'm going to read some from my phone a little bit. There were many, many, many black towns in Kansas, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Texas, New Mexico, where there were black pioneer establishments that are never talked about. And there were many, many, many more that were never documented. And this is the reason why Esau brought the Gatling gun and submachine guns. He saw us rising up very rapidly. Rosewood is just a small example. And all praises that Rosewood was able to come up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. No. That's what they let you see. There were many other places throughout all the South and the West where we were rising up. And Gad, a lot of times, was helping us. That's why 1811 was so fierce, because if that had been successful, that was going to change the whole tide of the South. And that's what they were scared of that uprising. Now they're free. They got schools. They're educated. These niggas got newspapers now. They got stores. In 50 years, we're going to be overtaken. And that's what their fear was, that we were going to overtake them, you know. So, Mickey, I'm sorry, bro. I apologize. You was about to say something.
So, within 7 years of being out of slavery, they had newspapers, they had schools, businesses. This only has to be of the Most High, because think about it. A newspaper, you got it, like you said, editors. So if we were forced not to be able to read for 400 years,
Right.
to within 2 years of being out of slavery, having these things, that is nothing but the Spirit of the Lord. And like he said in Deuteronomy 7:6, can we get that? Deuteronomy 7:6. This is what Esau fears, because this is the proof in the pudding that the Bible is a true book. When it says this, read.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7, verse 6. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord
says, we are a holy people, meaning we are set apart. Read.
The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth.
It said the Lord chose us to be a special people. It takes a special people to be oppressed and beat down for 400 years, forced not to be able to read or write, to 7 years out of slavery, to be able to own businesses, have newspapers, and schools. That's a chosen people. That's a special people. That's a blessed people.
Hey, officer, that's heavy. I remember in high school, Miss Morris, she was my journal teacher, and I had to do. We had like what we call a bulldog news. You would have to actually set up logistics where you had to go. You had to interview people. You had to have interpersonal skills. You couldn't talk to people any kind. You had to gather the facts, and then that was a certain format you have to write these little articles in. You have to get people. I still remember this stuff, and it was tedious. So for this brother to do this like fresh out of slavery, that's a hard thing to do.
You know what else? Think about this. You got to have a 4-year journalism degree
Exactly.
to be a newspaper editor. We were less than 10 years out of slavery. Less than 10 years out of slavery. And we got a newspaper.
Seems to me like we did pull ourselves up by our bootstraps.
Yes.
Yes, we
And then-
did.
And then they took our boots.
So they
Exactly.
took the boots.
Hey, I'm going to read, because we can't pull up this. I'm going to read a couple of passages. This is from the Washington Post. I hope I can get in here real quick. It's from the Washington Post, and it's called All Black Towns Across America, Life Was Hard but Full of Promise. So I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs. It says, a few years after the Civil War ended, promoters determined to establish an all-black town on the Kansas frontier took out an ad in the Kentucky Bulletin promising membership to the largest colored colony in America for a small down payment. All colored people that want to go to Kansas on September 5th, 1877 can do so for $5. There's a town and frontier in Kansas. Right? I'm going to scroll down. This is important. I wanted to pull up on the screen. There's another, let's see here. Bear with me. Oh, my gosh. Let me see here. Okay, here you go. So the same settlement in Kansas. Although life was hard on the Kansas plains, they fought hunger, snakes, prairie fires. The population of Nicodemus reached as many as 700 people by 1880. To what Michael was saying before. So they first started out with a couple of families headed to this place in Kansas. Then within 15 years, by 1880, they gathered a town of 700. Were they given 40 acres and a mule? No, they were not. They went out there with nothing. They used the resources of the land and their ingenuity and their intelligence, and they created, this is one example, and here's a town that's not talked about in Kansas. I'm going to scroll down. Here we go. This is it. Perfect. Here we go. So it says, quote unquote, the black town idea reached its peak in 50 years after the Civil War. Crockett writes. So 50 years after the Civil War is mathematically 1915. 1865, add 35, add 15. It's 1915 it reached its peak. Listen to this, and this is all I'm going to do from this article. The dearth of extant records prohibits an exact enumeration of them. So in other words, they don't know how many of them that there were, referring to these black settlements, right? Check this out. But at least 60, 60, S-I-X-T-I, 6T, at least 60, and this is what the white man is going to allow you to hear. At least 60 black communities were settled between 1865 and 1915. With more than 20, Oklahoma led all of the states. Unfortunately, little is known about many of the other black towns. So if Esau in his Washington Post in modern 2015, this article was written, is going to tell you that there was 60, I believe there was probably 1,000. And that's why they started to do the things they did by firebomb us and send the Klan after us and do these things and use weapons of war like they did in Tulsa and use planes and bombed us from the sky because we had 60 prominent towns that was coming up. And we started to become on the same playing field, and guess what? To surpass our Caucasian counterparts. And that's what they don't want you to know. We're giving you some 7 years after slavery. We're supposed to be just wandering. They would make you seem like we're hobos, wandering like the adventures of Natty Gann. Like we was on bums in a train, just eating out of pots and tents. It's a lot of us were living, struggling like that. But there were people who had power, who was a brigadier general, Robert Smalls, had power, got a good sum of money, went back, bought his master's house, said, you know what, I'm going to use strategy and redemption. You remember before when you were helping me to get a job and I didn't get paid? Here goes $1,000. I know you're feeling bad right now, Mr. White Man. Then he took the rest of his bread, opened up a black newspaper, black school, black stores, and then later what we're going to find out is he went and became a prominent public representative at the federal level and fought, and the state level at South Carolina, and fought for his people, bro. So there's so much that Judah did here in America that is not being recognized. Until you dig and search, you're not gonna read about this, man. They're not gonna tell you about this.
Like you said,
You know?
Cap, when they firebombed us, they destroyed our communities that we built. 60, and that's just the ones that they willing to tell you about, or the number that they willing to put out there. It was probably hundreds. And I'm going to say probably because black people fresh out of slavery do exactly what the so-called Hispanics do today. See, Judah get mad at Issachar and Simeon and Ephraim when they come together and open up stores and taco trucks and all of that stuff. They fresh out of captivity, bruh. They know it. They fresh out of captivity. Just like when we was fresh out of captivity, we came together and we did our thing. But one tactic of war to the people who write history is to erase yours.
Can we
So
go-
of course they would not tell us about that. Why? The same reason why they won't tell us about Robert Smalls. They'll tell us about Harriet Tubman all doggone day. But they will never, ever, ever bring up Robert Smalls. Why? Because that would give us too much encouragement. That's not the image that Black America needs.
Can we get a script? Jeremiah 29:5. This is what the brother was doing. This is what the brother was doing. They always want us to think we run around in like little cloth skirts, chunking spears. This brother took out an ad in Esau's newspaper and said, "Hey, y'all come live here." This is what he was doing. Can you read that, officer?
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 29 and verse 5. Build ye houses.
Because that's what comes with a community. You already got a store, you got a school, so you got houses. Like Cat was saying, if they told us it was 60, it was probably thousands of us. Because you got to think, when people are free, they want to go to where other free people who like-minded are where they at. So he built build houses, read on.
And dwell in them.
So they were living in their house, read.
And plant gardens.
So they had to grow. They were already farmers, so they had to have food. So what do you think they were doing? They were cultivating the land. They were doing the stuff that they were doing in slavery. For themselves, though, read.
And eat the fruit of them.
And they were eating the fruit. Read on.
Take ye wives.
And you know, the marriage rate was higher. It was higher when we were slavery because we knew we had to stick together. We stuck with our own people. That interracial marriage wasn't going on then. Read.
And beget sons and daughters.
And they were having children. Why you think the brother had a school for black children? They having babies. They married and they having children. That's how he built a community. Read on.
And take wives for your sons.
And they were marrying their children. I'll read.
And give your daughters to husbands.
And give your daughters to husbands. Read.
That they may bear sons and daughters.
Uh-huh.
That ye may be increased there and not diminished.
And that's how the community was growing. That's why he put the article in the paper. They were marrying, having children, and the community was thriving.
So to your point, Officer Mike, I'm going to read on the Washington Post. So the author Crockett writes that not much was documented about the daily lives, aspirations, and fears of people living in such towns as Blackdom, New Mexico, Hobson City, Alabama, Allensworth, California, Rentsville, Oklahoma, because residents failed to record their experiences. And whites, now they say they failed to record the experiences. I believe that when they ransacked the town and did the things that they did, they burned our records. Yep. I don't. Our forefathers kept records. We had scribes. Come on.
Yeah. How the hell are we gonna have a newspaper
Right.
going out,
Right.
but
Thank
we ain't
you.
keep no records?
Exactly.
Yeah, go ahead, blame the Negroes for us getting our stuff bound by you.
Yes.
So listen to what it says. It says, because residents failed to record their experiences, that's what they say, and whites were not interested in preserving and collecting material on the black towns. So if you're not interested in preserving and collecting, why not burn it? Why not hide it? Why not keep it to yourself? Now, check this out. Here we go. Here's the point. So Oklahoma's all black towns included Clearville, Boley, and Langston, which were founded around 1890 according to the Black Towns Project. So there are some black folks that research called the Black Town Project. Check this out. This is Mound Bayou, Mississippi. Mound Bayou, Mississippi was founded in 1887 by freedmen led by Isaiah Montgomery. The town, according to blackpast.org, check that site out, blackpast.org, was designed for the residents to have very little listen to this. It was designed for the residents to have very little contact with whites. They had a post office. Churches, banks, schools, and stores was often cited by Booker T. Washington as a model of self-sufficiency.
Now hold on, Cap.
I'm going to read the whole thing again. You can comment. Hold up. So, again, if I had to learn this even in college, right, we got to listen. Mound Bayou, Mississippi was founded in 1887. That's 22 years after. So most of that generation that was in their 20s and up had already been slaves at the time, right? Freedman and Isaiah Montgomery. The town, according to blackpast.org, was designed for the residents to have very little contact with whites, hence Nehemiah 5 and 9. Had a post office, churches, banks, schools, plural, with an S on the end, stores, plural, and was often cited by Booker T. Washington, y'all know Booker T., as a model of self-sufficiency. How come we know about Tulsa, Oklahoma, all praises for that, but we don't know about Mound Bayou, Mississippi? I'm going to read one more. Eatonville, Florida. How come we've heard about Rosewood? That was in Florida, right?
Yes, sir.
How come we never heard about Eatonville, Florida? Let's read another one. Eatonville, where Zora Neale Hurston grew up, was incorporated in 1887, another 22 years after Emancipation Proclamation, right? After the slaves were so-called free, right? That's where she went to collect black folklore. Houston wrote of mules and men that let's see if I can say. Okay, so anyways, I'm going to stop there because this one article in the Washington Post gives knowledge to many black towns that were established 20 years after slavery. So there were many, many places that were thriving that had post office towns, newspapers. Robert Smalls just did it right after slavery. So look, we are going to get ready to go to the break. We're already halfway through the show. 4 minutes. All right. Mike, bring your point. I'm sorry.
I just had a question. Who was running these? Who was the people occupying these businesses? Was it Casper the Friendly Ghost? Because it clearly said it wasn't Esau.
Right.
That's the only question I had. So it had to be our people. He said they didn't want to contact with him because these are the same people that were oppressing us.
Yeah.
So,
But see, Mountain Bayou and Eatonville, both were on record to have schools,
yes,
post office. So you know they send the letters.
yes.
Letters are records.
Right.
Thank you.
Letters are
Thank
records.
you.
You know what I'm saying? They got all of this stuff going on, and yet, they didn't keep no records. So it's their fault that they didn't keep. No, when white people don't care about stuff, they destroy it.
There you go.
Look at our people.
Because when we
They
go
didn't
to
care about our
when we
people,
go
so
to
they destroyed us.
We've been to school.
Yeah.
What's the first thing they do when you go to school? They take you what? They take what?
Your records.
Attendance. They
Yeah,
take
they
your
take
attendance.
attendance.
They say, okay, well, we got 1, 2, this many students. They name and attendance.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So I'm gonna read one more. So there's town after town after town, and again, if they say that there were 60 of them, there were probably 1,000. So we should really understand that we didn't take slavery laying down, and we got back up and stood up strong. Last town, Bowley Creek Nation Indian Territory. Listen to this. So Bowley Creek Nation Indian Territory. Now watch the words they use. Was incorporated in 1905. That's 40 years after the freeing of our forefathers, becoming one of the wealthiest black towns in the country. I never heard of Bowley Creek Nation myself. According to the African American Registry. So there are some brothers and sisters that are researching our past. Researchers say, these are black men and women that are research, it is impossible to find a complete list of all black towns. Let me read it again. Researchers say it is almost impossible to find a complete list of all black towns and communities. Many less famous black towns and communities survived until the Depression, when black families left out of the necessity to find jobs. So if the Great Depression kind of made a lot of our people move on. But before that time, many, many countless towns down south and in the Midwest, all the way to New Mexico, in California, we had establishments with our own cities, our own schools, our own businesses, our own post office, our own this and that. It goes on and on and on. Y'all got to understand that we can go back to that with the mindset that our forefathers have. The advantage that we have is we have the knowledge of our Israelite nationality, the commandments we got to keep, how to deal civilly, morally with one another. And this is what's going to help us as we move and we grow. All right. So with that, we get ready to go to the break. It's halfway through the show. We've got a whole bunch more coming after. We're going to go into a powerful sister and the things that she did during the early 1800s. So with that, we're going to segue over to Officer Mikael with Cornerstone News.
Hey, Shalom Israel, Most High in Christ blessed. This is your brother, Officer Mikael, and this is the Cornerstone News. Hey, could y'all play that first video for me?
Root is a new type of car insurance that
Come on.
He put in the work. Bishop Nathaniel, yeah, he a prophet sent back to the earth, back to the earth. He sent you to wake up the people and tell them, come out of the church, come out of the church. He ready for war, soon as they run to get out of the dirt, out of the dirt. Ay. Shout out, shout out, shout out, Tuesday. Shout out, shout out, shout out, Tuesday.
Got the juice, I ain't talking no bootleg, cause we walk in the light of a new day. I can't listen to nothing a fool say. Thank the Lord that he showed us a new way.
Shout out, shout out, shout out, Tuesday. Shout out, shout out, shout out, Tuesday.
Got the juice, I ain't talking no bootleg, cause we walk in the light of a new day. I can't listen to nothing a fool say. Thank the Lord that he showed us a new way.
El diablo se embrutece porque el movimiento crece. No hay nadie que detenga esta verdad y aunque les
So, Israel, make sure y'all go check out Shout Out Tuesdays. Bishop Nathaniel touches on different topics concerning these so-called Christian pastors and the wickedness that they teach. So, with this, speaking of our bishop and the things that he does and the bricks that he puts in, I want y'all to play this next video showing the mission that was just completed in Guyana, South America.
Yeah. Request? We spread the gospel to the east side, then we take it all over to the west side. Can't forget about them brothers in the countryside. Shout outs to the prophets going worldwide. We going worldwide out here making moves. Out here.
Hey, so all praises to the Most High for our leadership. All praises to the Most High for our leadership going out and doing the work. Now, what I want y'all to do, Israel, is make sure y'all like and subscribe and share these videos. Also, make sure y'all subscribe to IUIC documentaries so y'all can keep up with all these documentaries. Like we got a powerful documentary on black churches that been out over a month and it only has 740 views. We need to push this truth, y'all. We need to push these things so our people can understand why they got to come out of the church. Our people got to understand why they got to come out of this black church. And these short documentaries like this might trigger something in their mind to search out the truth. So make sure y'all push and share these videos and subscribe so y'all can see when these videos come out. Also, what I want y'all to do is go back and watch yesterday's Power Hour. Yesterday's Power Hour, they had a special guest host, Deacon Yawasap. Y'all all right? Y'all make sure y'all go watch that. That was a very, very powerful show. And play the last video.
which spirit you rolling with. Either you rolling with the spirit of Satan and who's waiting for the lake of fire, or you're gonna roll with the spirit of Christ.
Created, manufactured right here in the Americas. Don't slip on that. This new Negro that we see today was a creation.
All praises to the Most High Israel. Make sure y'all watch the Friday night lineup with the Book of Our Fathers, Deacon Yawasop, Fix Your Face, Hammer Time, Friday Night Raw. Also, make sure y'all go to the IUIC Louisiana Facebook page for all of tonight's content. All of the articles that are being read tonight, even the article that Captain Shim read personally, can be found on our Facebook page. So make sure y'all go to IUIC Louisiana Facebook page for all the content. Also, this live video, make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe to push up the YouTube algorithm. And that concludes Cornerstone News.
So we covered last weekend a little bit more on Robert Smalls, and now we're going to show you, and this we're going to flip it up, because a lot of times we give the honor and praise to a lot of the brothers, but now we're going to go into a sister. This sister was not talked about as much as, say, Harriet Tubman or, say, for example, Rosa Parks, but what she did was pretty profound. Let's pull up that first article on our sister. It was Harriet Jacobs. That's it. We're not going to read the whole thing. So first and foremost, Harriet Jacobs was born in 1813. So mathematically, she lived in slavery for 52 years, right? 1813 to 1865, she was a slave for most of her adult life, right? So we're going to read about this sister.
It was not Harriet Jacobs' nature to give up without a fight. Born into slavery,
1813,
Harriet Jacobs would thwart repeated sexual advancements made by her master for years.
The white man loves black women. And he knows that black women, in his mind, look better than his woman. That's why a lot of these white women didn't want pretty black sisters in the house, because they felt very threatened. Okay, read on.
Then run away to the north. She would later publish an account of her anguished life in her autobiography, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl.
So now she learned to become an author and wrote about her life as a slave. So there's many noteworthy historical figures who were slaves for 52 years. They got out, got free, and wrote memoirs or accounts of their life. Here's an example. She actually is going to tell about how she escaped. This is pretty interesting. Read on.
Harriet's childhood was a happy one. We lived together in a comfortable home, she wrote in her autobiography. And though we were all slaves, I was so finely shielded that I never dreamed that I was a piece of merchandise. She even found happiness after her mother's death. When she moved into the house of her mother's mistress, a kind woman who nurtured the young Harriet, teaching her to read and sew, and seeing to her well-being.
So the mistress was not a kind woman, because if she was a kind woman, she would have freed the sister, gave her about 100 pounds of gold, begged for her forgiveness. She was a slave mistress. That's what she was. Okay, read on.
The happiness would not last, though. Upon the death of the benevolent mistress, when Harriet was 12 years old, ownership of Harriet was transferred to the mistress' niece.
So more of a devil than the other devil took over. Read on.
But since the niece was only 3 years old, Harriet's actual master was the father, a Dr. James Nocum.
Now, surely the good doctor, the slave master who took a Hippocratic oath, and if he was actually a medical doctor, to took a duty to uphold human life, surely he treated this and did the right thing by Harriet, this sister.
This man would be the cause of a great deal of misery.
Wait, the good doctor? The good doctor. Read on.
Around the time Harriet turned 15, Norcom began his relentless efforts to bend the slave girl's will.
So these professionals at the time in the early 1800s who hold the title of doctors and lawyers were scumbags. Scumbags. They didn't have any conscience. Read on.
At first, he whispered foul words in her ear. As time went on, his tactics became more overt.
So the doctor was a pedophile. He was a pedophile, this guy. Read on.
Still, Harriet refused to give in. To get Harriet away from his wife, who was suspicious of her husband's intentions, he built a cottage for the girl's slave 4 miles from town. Harriet had previously asked Norcom for permission to marry a free black man. Norcom had violently refused.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Harriet had a plan to disrupt his fight for sexual conquest. She had become friends with a caring white man, an unmarried lawyer.
Don't go up fall asleep. Now, the Most High will use certain Caucasians to help us. He was not a caring white man, or he would use his law degree and got with a bunch of other caring white people and freed freed the slaves, our forefathers, long before 1865. That's a bunch of crap. Read on.
She would become sexually involved with this man, become pregnant, and infiltrate Norcom, and infuriated Norcom would sell her and her child. A child was conceived. Harriet felt it was something to triumph over my tyrant in the small way. Nevertheless, Norcom had no intention to sell her.
So she had a baby for a white man because she was just trying to get away from the other devil. Look, it is what it is. Read on.
Harriet gave birth. Still, Norcom pursued Harriet. The harassment continued even after she bore the lawyer another child. Finally, after she learned that Norcom was preparing to put her child to work as plantation slaves, she had had enough.
So she had enough. So now we're going to read, and this is the whole thing about this show. It's about freedom. Our people did not take slavery laying down. Many people tried to escape and get the hell away from these people. We read about Robert Smalls, right? We're going to read about this sister. Read on.
In June of 1835, after 7 years of mistreatment, Harriet escaped. For a short time, she stayed with various neighbors, both black and white. Then she moved into a tiny crawl space.
I'm gonna show you the. When you read this is really depressing, right? But our people crave freedom and freedom from racism and mistreatment, that they would undergo some seriously harsh living conditions. Watch what she had. Watch what she went through. This is some. We're gonna read a couple other articles to substantiate this, but read on.
Then she moved into a tiny crawl space above a porch built by her grandmother and uncle. The space was 9 feet long and 7 feet wide.
Those of you who understand building, that's 63 square feet. 9 feet long and 7 feet wide. Read on.
Its sloping ceiling.
So it wasn't a true 8-foot set, it's sloping ceiling. So small 63 square feet with a sloping ceiling. How were the conditions? Read on.
Only 3 feet high at one end.
So one end, it was only 3 feet high. Read on.
Didn't allow her to turn while laying down without hitting her shoulder.
So she couldn't even turn and laying down without hitting her shoulder. So it was very, very tight. How long did she live here for? Read on.
Rats and mice crawled over her.
Right.
There was no light and no ventilation. But her children had been bought by the lawyer and were now living in the same house. Harriet could even see them while they played outside through a peephole she had drilled.
So she lived in that, mice, rat infested. You could barely turn around. She did peepholes to look outside. Why? Because she did not want to deal with Esau. She put herself through that. But watch this as we read on in 1842. Come on.
She lived in the crawl space for 7 years.
Wait, you read that correctly, please, sir.
She lived in the crawl space for 7 years.
Can you imagine living in a crawl space for 7 days? 7 months would be miraculous. This sister And by the way, we're going to get a picture of her in a minute. 7 years in a 9x7 with a 3-foot sloping ceiling with no light, a peephole, like an area where no one cared about because they had mice running through it. She lived there for 7 years because she had to get away from the white man. And you sisters today want to run to the white man and put yellow hair in your head. Our sisters had a resilient fighting spirit. We're going to read on.
Coming out only for brief periods at night for exercise.
Yo, she came out at night so no one could find her to do some side straddle hots, some mountain climbers, some burpees, whatever, to stretch your legs out.
She came out to burn the fat.
Burn the fat. When I read the history last week, I want us all to try to imagine us living there for only 7 days. Just 7 days, that's it. And what it would do to your psychological, what it would do for your psyche, rather. She did it for 7 years, but there was a purpose to her doing that. She saw the vision. She knew there was going to be an end result, and she was willing to suffer in a damn janitorial closet. We could probably compare it to something like that, right?
And Cap.
Yes, sir.
Remember, it said that the harassment from the master started off with foul words whispered in her ear. And then it came to more overt advances. And then she still disregarded the man, still was putting up a fight. But nowadays, our sisters hear foul words about themselves and then take it as a compliment, a wop, a bad B, a thought. And she's for the streets. She gonna get her club shot up. All of these things, it's detrimental to the reputation of any woman. And yet, look at what one of our foremothers did just to get away from captivity. Just to get away from captivity. Because she thought, okay, I'm going to marry a black man to get my freedom. Master beat the hell out and said, no, all right, I'm going to go get pregnant by another white man. Maybe he'll take me away from this, and I'll get my freedom. Anything she had to do to get her freedom, she tried it.
This is some heavy, heavy history. And she goes on later on. I just wanted to just show you her early journey because a lot of times we complain because we have it tough, right? When bills pile up, you could be getting, at the job, people give you a hard time. This sister was harassed. He tried to advance sexually on her. It was a lot more than what's being said. What would make a woman want to live in a 9x7 closet with a 3-foot sloping ceiling, completely dark for 7 years? Her will to survive and be free from the devil. That's what it was. Okay? Yes, she laid with the white lawyer. I get it, and that was wrong, right? But we're going to read on a little bit more.
In 1842, Harriet made her escape to freedom. She sailed to Philadelphia and after a short stay, traveled to New York City by train.
Now, we're going to find another article that tells you a little bit more of how she did that because we skipped the whole time period here because for 7 years, how did she just end up getting to Philadelphia? Read on.
There, she was reunited with her daughter, who had in the meantime been sent by her father. Harriet would later move to Rochester, New York, to be close to her brother, also a fugitive slave. Then she became involved with the abolitionists.
So let's pause right here because this article goes on and on. I want you to, Officer Mike, you posted a YouTube video. We're going to watch a short YouTube clip because we want to get articles. We've got a couple of other scholarly sources, and we have some audio video to go with this. So we're going to play, and this sister, by the way, was bright skin. Okay, so a lot of times they want to show you that Harriet Tubman, or you got to look like a certain, there were black people of all different skin tones, shades that went through hell. Look, when you look at it, she looked like a old school, older version of Rosa Parks. Okay, very fair skin, but she knew she was black, being harassed, lived in a damn closet to escape the white man. Okay, play. Pause real quick. Can you go back to, I wanted to see that picture. So it's amazing that this sister, this isn't later on in her life, the dignity, the full long dress, the buttoned up women of that age. I remember my great grandmother. Every time I used to get around it, even the boys and the grandchildren, every time I seen it do it every time. She would always go like this every time men come around. Every single time. Even if it was warm out, she would take a shawl and she would go like this. And this is the spirit them sisters, they learn that. Look at her. She looked like she damn Puerto Rican, right? This was a black woman, okay? Look at her, you know? Bright-skinned sister, but nevertheless, she would have swung from a tree just like freaking Robert Smalls, all right? Play on. So this one is just kind of giving you a basic. As a teenager, she endured abuse and sexual harassment from her owner, chronicled in her memoir, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, written by herself. The degradation, the wrongs, the vices that grow out of slavery are more than I can describe, Harriet Jacobs. Harriet later escaped and lived in hiding for nearly 7 years in Edenton. Pause right quick. So now, because we dug a little bit, when they said 7 years in hiding, you might think she just was in another state. No, she was in a closet, 9x7, with a 3-foot where she could barely turn around with a peephole and rats and mice running through there. See, that's why you got to put things together to see when it said that she hid for 7 years. Now we understand the level she was willing to take it there. Think about that.
Just to give a view of it, it said she lived in a crawl space above the porch. You see that little overhang right there? Imagine living in that for 7 years. And it's over a porch. So you see your kids when they're coming in and going. Wow. You watching them grow up because you hiding for fear, and you also hiding for your own safety.
Hold on. I see what you're saying now. Can you take the little mouse there and circle where Officer Matthews? Can we do that?
That red overhang right there.
So look at the words Harriet Jacobs. Now circle that triangle.
Yes, that right there. So that slope and all of that, that's where she was living at, above the porch.
Right, so you got to figure 9x7, and at the one corner was 3 feet. So maybe a little bit bigger than that. That is super small, but something just like that. And by the way, for 7 years, that's 7 summers. Yeah. Now, I work in HVAC. And I'm in attics. I was in the attic today, and it was hot as hell in the attic today. It was only 70 out. When it is summertime, okay, in a crawl space in any part of an attic, Akim, you know about that, it can get to 140 degrees. It's unbearable. So, I mean, that's amazing. That is just amazing that she was, wow.
And they did say they had no ventilation.
None.
So in the wintertime, she was cold. In the summertime, she was hot.
Damn. Play on. Above a storeroom in a grandmother's house where Harriet's children lived, unaware of her presence. Season after season, year after year, I peeped at my children's faces and heard their sweet voices with a heart yearning all the while to say, your mother's here. Now, in according to the scriptures, she had bastard children. I think the white man made it so really it was probably good that the Lord separated from those from the heathen. But nonetheless, she had to endure that. Read on, play on. In 1842, Harriet secretly see here's a little more history. In 1842, Harriet secretly boarded a ship in Edenton Harbor bound for Philadelphia. So let's paint the picture. No one knows where she's at. They probably thought that nigger just died somewhere. Yep. They can't find her for 7 years. So she understands about 7 they must all think I'm dead. She had her ear to the corner. She's listening to everything that's going on. She said, you know what? I think I bought enough time. They probably think I'm gone. Now I got to figure out a way to get, she made it all the way to the docks where you catch a ship. Think about the wisdom that she had to use to be able to board a ship in a harbor during slavery. She's black.
Cap.
This is amazing.
And not only that, you could tell she was thinking revolutionary because she would come out at night to exercise.
Right.
She knew like, hey, I'm gonna have to run. I gotta walk. I gotta run, hike, whatever to get to this ship because ain't nobody picking up in no carriage. You a slave.
Right. Hey, think about what Officer Mike just said. You can't, if the harbor is, and maybe the harbor is only a mile away, but even then, but chances are the harbor is not, it could have been miles away. So she could not depend on getting riding a horse because slaves don't get a horse. You can't rent a taxi horse because you don't got no money because you a slave. So she had to walk. She had to walk, and how did she get food? How did she make it there? How was she resilient enough? How did she sneak aboard? All the fears that she had to overcome. Let me tell you something. You overcome a lot for 7 years in the doggone. She was hungry. I wanted to get the hell out of here, man. We got to imagine ourselves. We come from a really powerful, really strong-minded people.
Cap, can you imagine the sisters today laying in the attic with a rat crawling over them?
Not for 7 seconds.
No, they go to screaming,
7
yelling.
seconds. 7 years.
Some of them don't want to live in a mean cottage
Yeah.
and build up from that. You know what I'm saying? This sister stayed in a piece of a house.
And you know what's heavy, man? And not to diminish Rosa Parks nor Harriet Tubman. But to me, this history right here, like, this is some powerful stuff right here. This is some power. Robert Smalls. This is the, and we need to really. This is why we're doing a show on this. Play on. And was later reunited with her children and her brother. For the last time I went to my nook, so this is the last time that she was getting ready to leave that 9x7, right? She called it her nook. You know, EJ can make anything. She said, you know what? Well, that was my nook, my little place I hid out at. For the last time I went up to my nook, its desolate appearance no longer chilled me, for the light of hope had risen in my soul. That's the power of Israelites. That's the power of the 12 tribes of Israel. And this is what the resiliency, the strength that we get from our people, because this, Robert Smalls, what he did, what a lot of our brothers did with the 60 or more black established towns that were established during the time of Reconstruction and post-Reconstruction, that needs to be talked about and celebrated. 1 month, come on. We need to talk about this oftentimes. Half of you that are listening to this, more than have never even heard of Harriet Jacobs, and that's not your fault. We have to search. We have to search this out.
It goes to show you how powerful hope is to black people. That's what they're trying to destroy. That's why if you can destroy a people's hope, you can keep them down. You can't destroy black people's hope. Her hope kept her alive, kept her with the mind on the mission. Her kids was taken from her, being raised by the Edomite. She couldn't talk to him, could only see him periodically, and then still had the mind that I'm going to escape and I'm going to get free. Her mind was on the mission, 7 years strong. Never forgot it, never was shook. Always had that glimmer of hope.
You know what's powerful about it? Even though she was 7 years in that crawl space, she called it her nook. She controlled her movement. She control. I'm gonna stay in here. I'm gonna wait till it get dark. Then I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna do my push. I'm gonna do my exercise. I tell myself, well, ain't no master telling me what to do. She lived very, very low, and she planned her destiny. The Most High put it in her to get on a ship in a harbor at night and boarded the ship successfully and made it out. That's how. Where's Edmonton? Is that Virginia? Where that's at? Can you look up Edmonton? I think it's in Virginia. If we can look up Harriet Jacobs in where she was in, help me out real quick.
Yeah, it's in Southampton County, Virginia.
So Virginia to Philly, that's a distance. So she got from Edmonton, she got to the harbor, and then she sailed in a ship around Virginia all the way up to Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's a journey. That's a significant journey, y'all. All right. let's go back. We only got a couple more minutes for Kingdom Music. Come on. There's another article about Harriet Jacobs. Go to, where is it? Officer Matt, actually, I don't know if you want to bring this out. Encyclopedia Britannica is oftentimes a great source to, because we'll probably fill in some of the gaps and align history with what we've already brought out about the sister.
Yeah, because in this article, it tells you that her plan to have those kids was that it was a plan, and she used that. It was a very complex plan and a very elaborate plan, but she was using any means necessary to get freedom, whether it meant to bear some kids by a white man so that that white man could take her and the children away. She was just trying to get away. She was just trying to get free.
Does it make? Do you got to buy this too?
No, it shouldn't.
That's where the rest
See, hey, right there. Yeah.
Oh, they give us a little something, right?
Harriet Jacobs, in full Harriet Ann Jacobs, also called Harriet A. Jacobs, born 1813, Edenton, North Carolina.
So actually, it was North Carolina. Correction, y'all, not Virginia, North Carolina. That's even more south. That's even more of a journey to get up to Philadelphia on that ship. So that's even. Carry on.
Yep.
U.S. died March 7, 1897, Washington, D.C. American abolitionist and autobiographer who crafted her own experiences into a eloquent and uncompromising slave narrative.
Scroll. They said that her slave narrative was one of the most comprehensive, in-depth looks into what it was to be slave. Scroll down. Matter of fact, read that.
Born into slavery, Jacob Steele was taught to read at an early age. She was orphaned as a child and formed a bond with her maternal grandmother, Molly Horniblow. I think that's Horniblow, who had been freed from slavery.
So her grandmother was a free slave. Go ahead.
While still in her teens, Jacob became involved with her neighbor, Samuel Treadwell Sawyer, a young white lawyer.
So in the other article, it said an unmarried lawyer. Yeah. But right here, boom, the dude lived right next to her. That was her idea of freedom. Go ahead.
By whom she had 2 children. When she refused to become her owner's concubine, she was sent to work in a nearby
scroll up
plantation in an attempt to force the sale of her children.
So the owner, because he couldn't have her, was gonna sell her and say, you can't be with me, you can't be with nobody. So she was gonna get sent to work like how it was when we went to Whitney Plantation. He was trying to sell her up the river. Go ahead.
Who were bought by their father and later sent to the north. Jacobs escaped and spent the next 7 years in hiding.
And now we know what those 7 years in hiding actually were. So the white man sold the children off because he actually bought his children because that was his kids. And she was going to get sold to another plantation. That's all Deuteronomy 28. Kids shall be taken from you and sold into captivity. From there, this is what happened.
After escaping to the north in 1842, Jacobs worked as a nursemaid in New York City and eventually moved to Rochester, New York, to work in the anti-slavery reading room above abolitionist Frederick Douglass's newspaper.
So she worked right above Frederick Douglass's newspaper. Right?
The North Star. During an abolitionist lecture tour with her brother, Jacob began her lifelong friendship with the Quaker reformer Amy Post.
So she used yet another Edomite connection to try to get the message out to the people even wider. That's all she was doing. Continue scrolling.
Post, among others, encouraged Jacobs to write the story of her enslavement.
That was it? Yeah. Scroll. Wait, matter of fact, go back up. show y'all what Esau do. Right there, right there.
Self-published in 1861, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl arguably the most comprehensive slave narrative written by a woman.
So they can get because women, they write with a lot of emotion. They put a lot of thought into every sentence. So everything that she was saying, she was writing it down, and they was publishing all of this. Go ahead.
Jacob's narrative does not shrink from discussing the sexual abuse of slaves or the anguish felt by slave mothers who faced the loss of their children.
So looking at when a mother loses her children, the sexual abuse that they have to endure, our women get over-sexualized now. And they use it to try to make money off. Having OnlyFans accounts and all of this, when our foremothers was fighting to not be sexualized, to not be sexually abused, to not be exploited. Go ahead.
Jacob's narrative does not shrink from discussing the sexual abuse of slaves or the anguish felt by slave mothers who face the loss of their children.
Because they love to have children. They didn't just get rid of their kids for nothing. Go ahead.
Rediscovered during the civil rights movement of the 1960s, Jacob's autobiography was not authenticated by scholars until 1981.
Watch this. Her autobiography, her book that she wrote from her mouth to the paper was not authenticated until 1981. Go ahead.
And had therefore often been considered a work of fiction.
They said that this sister's story was fake. That's exactly what they do to us. Oh, slavery was a long time ago. Oh, you got to let that go. Oh, that didn't happen. Derby dose. What? That didn't happen. Oh, you guys are blowing this whole slavery thing out of proportion. Nah, it's right there in the black and white. They took that sister's story and forced it to be a work of fiction. Knowing all of the things that she tried to escape from slavery, to escape from sexual abuse, to get her freedom, to gain the one thing that our people had always dreamed of at that time, being 50 some odd years old still in slavery.
It's I want to read something. This is from another article to correspond with the fact of how small the space was. Some of it's the same. So basically, it says, let's see here. For Harry Jacobs, escaping slavery meant. This is from the History Channel. Escaping slavery meant hiding for several years in a prison of her own devising, because she knew that in order for her plan to work, to escape, she had to suffer. She devised it. She said, no one's going to look for me in this coffin-like space, right? Born a slave in North Carolina, Jacob spent her teenage years. Let's go down here real quick. Bear with me. Okay, it says, here we go. Knowing her chances of making it to the North was slim, she eventually holed up in a small attic crawl space. So like Officer Matt showed you, that's an attic crawl space above a porch. And I want to just reiterate this. Okay? She eventually holed up in her grandmother's home. The rat-infested room was tiny, only 9 feet long and 7 feet wide, with a sloping ceiling that never reached higher than 3 feet. The whole thing wasn't higher than 3 feet. I'm thinking it was like 8 feet in the slope. This is why I wanted to read another article. The whole thing was not more than 3 feet. So that means you couldn't barely turn around. So earlier when she said you couldn't turn around, it wasn't as you standing up. You were laying down, you could barely roll over. And this is what she says. She says, with a sloping ceiling that never reached higher than 3 feet. And Jacobs later wrote that it offered no admission for either light or air. Yo, you gotta understand, like it's resilient beyond measure. It's worse than prison. Nevertheless, she would spend an astonishing 7 years living in the coffin-like space. So she compares it later on when she had time to write and reflect on it. It was like living in a coffin. No light and air admittance. The tallest point was 3 feet and it sloped down 9 by 7. So this is what our forefathers went through. So all praise to the Most High for the spirit of a sister like that, And we wanted to share that with you on tonight's show. So we've covered Robert Smalls. We went into the many untalked about black pioneer towns that were all over the South and Midwest. And then, of course, we talked about our sister Harriet Jacobs today. So, look, next week we're going to continue on, our Lord's will, with a couple of more our brothers who escaped the plantation and show you more of to be proud of what our forefathers struggled through. All right. So we pray you got something out of today's show. Maybe it inspires some of you to read a little bit more about Robert Smalls and Harriet Jacobs and some of the pioneer towns that our forefathers established before the so-called Great Depression for 50 years, from 1865 to about 1920 or so. So with that, we're going to roll right into Officer Matthew in the last segment, down to Kingdom Music. Take it away, Officer Matt.
Hey, Shalom, Israel, Most High Christ bless. Hey, let me get original royalty recordings.com pulled up real quick. Because this past week, Officer Mikael, he had already played the Shout Out Tuesday. Look, everybody is answering a call, all right? When leadership puts these things out, hey, look, we're trying to do something to help promote what the bishop does in the middle of the week. Shout Out Tuesdays. Why? Because it shows that we are helping putting out our bricks. That's it. Music is a brick to put in. Like it says in Chronicles, music, you prophesy with music. All right? So y'all stay tuned for some more Shout Out Tuesday answers for the calls. So this past week, I ain't gonna lie, I have been vibing to Jeremiah, Here Is the Patience. Album is fire. All right? Album is fire. Those of y'all who have been waiting on R&B, hey, this should be a nice little addition to your Apple Music, your Spotify, your previously purchased albums. This should be a nice addition to your collection. All right? That Jeremiah album is nice. We also have Arel, Mercy, straight out of Memphis, Tennessee. Scroll. We got Moses with the I Am Job, straight out of Memphis. The biggest promoter behind that also is Captain Yadin. Captain Yadin is promoting the hell out of I Am Job. Not even gonna lie. Shout out to Captain Yadin, Memphis, Tennessee. And Patient Saints Volume 2. Hey, that thing coming. Hey, that thing is good. Hey, do we have Psalms 149 Volume 2 ad? We need that ad. I gotta show y'all one more ad for the music because it's up and coming. It's about to get hot and heavy. Atlanta came with the Patient Saints, and guess what? Miami came up with the Kingdom Music Volume 1. Remember that? That thing was fire. Then they came with Psalms 149, which Psalms 149, hey, that thing is hot. But there's a Psalms 149 Volume 2 coming out. Psalms 149 Volume 2 is coming out. It's going to be hot. Y'all need to go ahead and get that when it drop. All right? Get that when it drop. And we're going to keep you posted on when it drop. We're going to show y'all the ad real quick. So we have the ad for Psalms 149. This is Volume 2. Y'all, if y'all ain't read Psalms 149, go ahead and read Psalms 149. You're going to see why they named it that. All right? It's called The Judgment Written. That album is going to be fire. Telling y'all now, it's going to be fire. And that does it for Kingdom Music. Most High Christ bless y'all. Y'all stay in the spirit.
Hey, Shalom. Hey, and that concludes another edition of Precept Upon Precept. We have some last, Officer Mikael has a plug that he's going to run into real quick before we sign off.
Hey, Israel, If y'all enjoyed the show tonight and all the radio shows, hey, we need money to keep these shows going. So give alms. If y'all want to keep the sanctuaries open, give alms at your local school by dropping it in an alms box or via PayPal at your local school's email address. If you want to give to this show, you can do so at iuic.neworleans@israelunite.org via PayPal. And also, if y'all want to continue seeing the bishops and the deacons go go out throughout the four corners of the earth, y'all got to give to the Booster Club. Y'all can do that by doing PayPal at iuic.fundraising@israelunite.org.
Israel United in Christ. We are not a hate group. We are not affiliated with any other Israelite group. Israel United in Christ is a nonviolent Bible-based movement. We do not advocate or condone any acts of violence against any race, ethnicity, or gender. We advise that if anyone hears or knows of any plots to cause harm to anyone or to break the laws of the land, you must contact the proper authorities to bring awareness to any possible threat as stated in Leviticus chapter 5, verse 1.
All praise to the Most High. Thank you for joining us again. Another edition of Precept Upon Precept. I'm your host, Captain Shem.
Officer Matthew.
Officer Mikael.
Officer Micah.
And with that, hey, make sure y'all get ready for Passover. We got less than 40 days left. Start preparing for Passover. It's going to be a big deal. And with that, we say,
Shalom.